If you are one of our regular listeners, you have heard over the years about how Pampers Swaddlers were an integral part of my girls' lives when they were in diapers. That is because I always depended on Swaddlers to make my life, well, easier. They keep your baby's skin healthy and dry with Pampers Breathe Free Liner, which wicks away wetness, allowing your baby's skin to breathe. There's also the blowout barrier at the back waist to help prevent up to 100% of leaks, even blowouts. Swaddlers have always given me peace of mind knowing that leaky diapers were not in our future. And since I love Swaddlers, they're always my go-to baby shower gift. Now, with the new Pampers Diaper Stash, gifting and receiving diapers is a whole lot easier. Diaper Stash is an online diaper fund where you, your friends, your family can contribute to a group gift of an online diaper stockpile. It is the gift that always fits. Take the guesswork out of choosing what size and how many diapers to gift. Here's how it works. Create a surprise Diaper Stash account for a new parent or expecting parent in your life. Then share the account with friends and family so they can also contribute. From there, watch your stash grow, and when it has reached its goal, gift the stash to the parents-to-be. They can use the stash funds to buy Pampers diapers and wipes anywhere they'd like. For any new parents in 2024, the Pampers Diaper Stash is the best new way for friends and family to say, "We got you." This live recording of Latina to Latina was made possible thanks to the generous support of the Fund for the City of New York and Telemundo's Mujeres Imparables. Who gets to have a legacy? That question is at the heart of Xochitl Gonzalez's new novel, Anita de Monte Laughs Last. And it's where we began our conversation, taped before a live audience of Latina to Latina listeners and Poderistas at the William Vale. To those of you who are able to show up, we loved seeing you. Thank you for your support and for reminding us why we produce this podcast. For those of you who weren't able to make it, here's what you missed. Thank you, Xochitl Gonzalez, for making us all feel so deeply, deeply seen. I texted Xochitl earlier and I was like, I'm not going to explain the plot of this book. It is too complicated. I'm going to ask you to give the pitch for this book. So explain what Anita de Monte Laughs Last is about.
So first, thank you for having me. Thank you all for coming. This is like very special to get to do these. I've been so excited since you asked me, because getting to do these in a space of just Latina women is so rare and really beautiful, because you're who I write for. So this book starts with an artist, Anita de Monte, in 1985. And when you meet her, it's clear she's in a challenged marriage to an older, more famous, more powerful artist. But she's kind of on the rise, and he's sort of hitting a plateau, which happens sometimes. And you find out right away that she died, mysteriously. They start out at a party having a fight in front of a lot of people, and then she's like, and then later when they found out that I died, was I pushed? Did I jump? No one knows. And then we go to 1998, and we follow Raquel Toro, who is like, low-income first-gen student at Brown. She is challenged. She's really ambitious, and she falls in love with art history and doesn't realize it's sort of a kind of space for people that were born to be in art history, And she's trying to find her way, and she's studying Jack Martin, the same man that was in the troubled marriage with Anita de Monte, and she meets a boy, and he's like everything that nobody in her life is like. And his name is Nick Fitzsimmons. And from there, we're off. And we start to hear about, we follow Raquel as she sort of comes of age as a young woman and finds her confidence and has her heart and confidence broken a lot. And it's interwoven with the story of Anita from the afterlife in some ways as she comes of age as a ghost and comes to terms with her death and what that means and what her powers are. And the two women's lives eventually intersect and fundamentally change both of their journeys. And so, it gets a little trippy, but it was really inspired, honestly, when I was like, after I'll let you ask a question, I promise. But Ana Mendieta, whose life and and death was the base for Anita de Monte, was a Cuban-American artist who came on Peter Pan right after the Cuban Revolution and was sent to an orphanage and foster family in Iowa. And grew up with just her sister in the middle of Iowa, speaking Spanish, coming straight from Cuba. And she was married to a sculptor named Carl Andre, who died earlier this year. And she mysteriously went out the window with him being the only witness. And for a long time, she was largely forgotten. But he was, like a giant. As recently as 2018, had a giant show at Dia Art Center with a big, thick catalog. And so, I felt a way about this. And this was sort of my way of being able to give voice in some way to a woman like that. Yeah.
And then on the Mendieta's ghost actually comes and visits you.
So I went to visit the ghost. Let's be very clear. My friend, who is a Cuban-American artist, I told her what the book was about. I sent her the outline, and she was like, you need to go to the American Academy of Rome, because Ana Mendieta was a fellow there, and her ghost lives behind one of the dormitories. And I just emailed them, and they were like, yeah, okay, May 6th, 7th, and 8th. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. You get weird requests. And she was so loud and clear. It was crazy. She was like, well, if you're going to borrow my story, then you need to use my voice. And I had written 3/4 of the book in third person, she says, blah, blah, blah. And I went back and I had to write all of her parts in first person. And then it completely changed the book. All of her parts felt otherworldly to some extent. Yeah.
If you are one of our regular listeners, then you have heard over the years about how pamper swaddlers were an integral part of my girls' lives when they were in diapers. That's because I always depended on swaddlers to make my life, easier. They keep your baby's skin healthy and dry with Pampers Breathe-Free Liner, which wicks away wetness, allowing your baby's skin to breathe. There's also the blowout barrier at the back waist to help prevent up to 100% of leaks, even blowouts. Swaddlers have always given me peace of mind knowing that leaky diapers were not in our future. And since I love swaddlers, they're always my go-to baby shower gift. Now, with the new Pampers Diaper Stash, gifting and receiving diapers is a lot easier. Diaper Stash is an online diaper fund where you, your friends, your family can contribute to a group gift of an online diaper stockpile. It's the gift that always fits. Take the guesswork out of choosing what size and how many diapers to gift. Here's how it works. Create a surprise Diaper Stash account for a new parent or expecting parent in your life. Then you share the account with friends and family so they can also contribute. From there, watch your stash grow, and when it's reached its goal, gift the stash to the parents-to-be. They can use the stash funds to buy Pampers diapers and wipes anywhere they like. For any new parents in 2024, the Pampers Diaper Stash is the best new way for friends and family to say, we got you.
I like how she's so yes, then the ghost visited me. Yes, and then she told me how to write. No big deal.
I think it wasn't the first time that something of that ilk had happened to me. So I didn't find it, I'm totally if somebody's and then the ghost pulled my feet. I'm of course the ghost did.
So some of Raquel is obviously drawn from your own personal experience growing up.
Yeah.
And the way you write about it feels deeply real.
I'd love to say that younger people in the audience won't know what I'm talking about, but unfortunately, I had met with a young woman that was a neighbor's daughter, and she was had gotten into 2 or 3 schools, and she was, also Puerto Rican. She was and all my classmates are oh, you just got in because you're Latina. And I was oh my God, I can't believe that 20-something years later, I couldn't even believe it. A giant swath of my high school friends suddenly, because I got an early admission, whatever they called it then, and they were it was they had been keeping my transcript. They're but you didn't take this class, but you didn't take this. It was really all the reasons why, and it's well, you did mark this box, and it was so I remember just being really from the beginning, before I even got there, it was this whole thing that was weighing on you, and then my first year there. I finally told this story. I think I texted you this. I did this oral history for Brown because I'm having my 25th reunion and I'm a person of interest. And so they were oh, it was about being a woman at Brown. And I was well, we had a women's peer, I had this incident with this very wealthy student who was going into our rooms and stealing our panties, basically. It was so I know, he's a choni thief. And I went to my women's peer counselor, and I did what I was told to do during orientation. And I was like, it's making the women in the dormitory feel uncomfortable. And she was like, let's have a meeting about it. And then when I got to the meeting, like, they locked the door behind me, and it turns out they were both from this like crazy rich like suburb of like, a mid-level city, and like had known each other for generations. And he was like, I had a private detective look into your family, and I can sue you for slander, and blah, blah, blah. And like, he was like, you're only here because like literally like you're an affirmative action admit. And that scene with the girls was completely taken out of the way that I had to get myself out of that room. And so then I'm just going to bring it up. When I got that fucked up review in the New York Times, like, and she was like, I didn't find that plausible. And I was like, I don't find you plausible. Like, I'm like, you're not supposed to take this stuff seriously, like, or personally. But I was like, I take that one really personally. Like, I was like, because it was so pulled from the heart. And I think that there are these versions, I don't know, like, and I felt it was really important to include because we're in this, like, time in America of sort of quiet white rage, like, and I felt that got a reaction. Like, it's like this, like.
So it was the quiet part.
It was
that got a reaction.
Yeah, it's not that quiet, but I do think like it manifests in quiet interpersonal ways, and I wanted to sort of show how that looks like, and how it feels as much as I possibly could. I mean, this was not a fun book to read. Like, there's fun parts now as a reader I can appreciate, but I was like, ugh.
Let me direct you to one of those fun parts as a reader. Well, it's painful and it's fun. You read for me where it starts. Anita, she said.
Okay. Oh, the scene. Just, can I tee it up just a little
please.
bit? So she's telling you about, we know that she's dead. So then she's like, let me tell you about the beginning of the end. And it's a night when her husband was having his third career retrospective at this museum. And he starts kind of trotting her around. He thinks of himself as like this sort of like Marxist. He's like a rich Marxist. And so he's like bringing her around to tell her about her Cuban heritage and coming on Peter Pan. And she hates it. Like, she's like, and so she kind of walks away. And she storms off, and his art dealer comes to the bathroom to confront her. Tilly's his dealer. Tilly was what I learned wealthy white people called a handsome woman. Tall and lanky, but dressed in a way that was elegant. She was brilliant, absolutely the greatest champion her artist could have behind them, but ruthless. Was never a fan of mine. Well, at least not my work. She told me in her own polite way to my face, but as far as I'm concerned, to dislike my work is to dislike me. Unlike my husband, I don't separate the two. This is a big night for Jack, Tilly said, and he wanted you here by his side, wanted to be sure you looked as gorgeous as possible, for you to be the one that he introduced people to. Tilly, I picked up my purse and took a sip of my drink. Jack has a lot of big nights. I know, because they take up a lot of mine. I'm trying to be a friend here, Anita, and what's your friendly advice? Just shut up and let him make my family history a prop in his one-man show? My advice is this: choose. Lots of women come to New York to become things, actresses, artists, singers, and they don't all have the talent to make it, but they also don't have your luck either. Excuse me, I said. I heard that you saw my facialist at Helena Rubinstein, Tilly replied, and it was true. She was excellent. The personal shopper, those gorgeous earrings, getting to travel around the world with someone who finds you gorgeous and fascinating and doesn't mind at all that you're a bit abrasive, finds it challenging even. And what the fuck are you trying to say, Tilly? Lots of girls try to make it doing something really hard and fail. There's no shame in that. But most of them don't meet and seduce the most successful artist of a generation. Seduce, I said with a laugh, but I felt the vibrato in my voice, not the quavering of tears, but of anger. I didn't move to New York to be a kept woman. I came to do my work. I was much shorter than Tilly, and she looked down on me now with such a patronizing gaze I wanted to slap her. Anita, she said, exasperated, the only reason you can't sit back and enjoy it, the only reason you bristle at how you're introduced and how Jack talks about your family or your history is because you're so intently caught up in being taken seriously as an artist. And I'm just telling you that you don't have to be. Jack doesn't care. Her words, said with clipped boarding school enunciation, clawed and scratched at me like a feral cat, cloaked in the coo of gallery talk, the politeness of a museum powder room, but vicious. Made worse because I knew this wasn't conjecture. He had told her as much. He told her about the shopper and the facialist and that he didn't give a fuck if I was an artist or a housewife. But I care that I'm an artist. A smile appeared on her face. One I remembered from when she looked at my portfolio. It was a smile doused in pity. I bit my tongue, resisted the urge because the truth of the matter was she was just the messenger. An intervention based on what I could tell were many, many heartfelt conversations. I wanted to say, you fucking puto, wait till you see what I do with my career now. I will not stop until you can't walk into a museum anywhere in this world without seeing a fucking Anita de Monte. I won't stop until they refer to Jack as Anita de Monte's boyfriend. Wait till I fucking show you. But instead, I just said, well, thank you for that advice. And I walked out of the bathroom, slammed the rest of my drink, and got another.
All the times I wish I'd had the retort on my tongue when it was time. The thing that I took away from that exchange, though, is Tilly's trying to say, it doesn't matter to him whether or not you're an artist. And what Anita is saying, no, but it matters to me.
Yep.
It matters to me that my first position in the world is not someone's wife or someone's mother, but an artist.
Yep. And I think she's always in this position where people are trying to ask her to accept something as being good enough. Time after time, she's being asked to take seconds or be settled for something and feel lucky. And she's like, I won't settle, and I refuse to feel lucky. And I think that was the thing about her that I felt was so empowering, and why I needed her to have a life after death, to have her not settle even then.
If you are one of our regular listeners, then you have heard over the years about how pamper swaddlers were an integral part of my girls' lives when they were in diapers. That's because I always depended on swaddlers to make my life, well, easier. They keep your baby's skin healthy and dry with Pampers Breathe-Free Liner, which wicks away wetness, allowing your baby's skin to breathe. There's also the blowout barrier at the back waist to help prevent up to 100% of leaks, even blowouts. Swaddlers have always given me peace of mind knowing that leaky diapers were not in our future. And since I love swaddlers, they're always my go-to baby shower gift. Now, with the new Pampers Diaper Stash, gifting and receiving diapers is a whole lot easier. Diaper Stash is an online diaper fund where you, your friends, your family can contribute to a group gift of an online diaper stockpile. It's the gift that always fits. Take the guesswork out of choosing what size and how many diapers to gift. Here's how it works. Create a surprise Diaper Stash account for a new parent or expecting parent in your life. Then you share the account with friends and family so they can also contribute. From there, watch your stash grow, and when it's reached its goal, gift the stash to the parents-to-be. They can use the stash funds to buy Pampers diapers and wipes anywhere they like. For any new parents in 2024, the Pampers Diaper Stash is the best new way for friends and family to say, we got you.
One of the interesting things about the fact that Xochitl has sort of two relationships happening in parallel is that by the time you meet Anita and Jack, I, as a reader, am so drawn to Anita that I'm like, how is it possible that this brilliant, strong woman would allow herself to be in a relationship with someone who is so cruel? And to me, it was then Raquel and Nick who are answering that question, because you're meeting them at the beginning of the relationship where she's so enamored with the idea of being wanted, where she is so excited by the fact that even though she has arrived on merit, things might be expedited for her socially by the fact that she is proximate to him, that in some ways one relationship answers the question of the other.
Yeah, and I think in some ways both of the, like, I don't usually put this much weight on an epigraph, but the epigraph for this book was taken out of my freshman year art history textbook. And it, in some ways, both of their situations are in answer to that. Can I read the epigraph?
Please.
I know that what a bizarre thing to do, but why indeed should one not include artists who embody very different sensibilities from that of the European and the mainstream? There is in principle no reason to exclude them whatsoever. However, I have decided to limit this addition to Western art. I have taken a stand about what art I think is most significant that not all readers will agree with, since it favors universality over ethnocentricity. And that's from a preface to the 5th edition of History of Art, not History of Western Art, History of Art, from 1994, Volume 2, Harry and Abrams. And I just thought, what is the damage that's done to us when we don't see ourselves as being worthy, our culture as being worthy? And what then do we feel will make us worthy? And it's like, oh, and when Raquel meets Nick, she's working so hard. And this person's like, you seem worth my time. And then it's like, and then with you by my side, it's like, now other people see me as worthy, that I was invisible to. And then it's sort of a matter of her deciding, is this worth then the costs that come with it to me?
Because there are additional parallelisms. I mean, there's the parallelism that both of these men exoticize their partners.
Yeah.
But also want them to conform.
Yes.
And that they are comfortable with their ambition so long as their partner's success does not eclipse their own.
To be honest, like that was totally, it was like a whole new world once the first book became really big, and seeing the ways in which my romantic relationships and prospects sort of changed. Not necessarily in the better. And just seeing people have this, men have this difficulty with it. And I wrote that from lived experience of like being like kind of having that ambition questioned, and like, and what happens when you don't want to do that? And like, and then at the same time, loneliness is a real thing. I think Anita talks about this, like, why did she keep breaking up with this guy, getting back together with this guy, breaking up? And I think that also felt important to me, because like, just because they're these sort of successful artists and like he's got some money, the still dynamics of an abusive relationship are still there. I think that's why people have been like, when I would read Raquel's part, I would want to throw it against the wall, because like, it's like hard seeing Anita and then being like, Raquel, stop. Like, yeah.
It's also just hard going back to being 18, 19,
oh my God,
20. And
right? Yeah, terrible.
And to that point, please read me this section about sex from Raquel's perspective.
The night that they first did it, she had felt turned on, had been buzzed just enough to not overthink the pain, or if she bled, she didn't, or if she would seem childish or not sexy enough for him. She was able to just feel lust, the desire for his skin to be on top of her skin. But in the times after, and it felt like so many times, she found that her arousal lay more in his desire for her and her ability to make him achieve pleasure than in that of her own. Her utility to him, his need for her, so corporal and primal, producing in her a desire to welcome him into her body more than any single physical need of her own. Perhaps this is why, in rare moments she allowed herself to think about it, the actual act itself felt so much like an invasion, a robbery almost, an intrusion with the sole purpose of extracting for him an orgasm from her.
So I was thinking about how you write about sex in Olga and how you write about sex in Anita, and I was like, this is just so different than the way a lot of people write about sex and talk about sex. And I think it's because you always contextualize sex as being about power.
Yeah.
And an exchange of power.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that is a theory of the case, if that is an editorial choice, if you recognize that you're doing it.
I think power is the subject of so much of what I write about, like here, and I'd say even at the Atlantic, like in fiction and also like in nonfiction. But in this thing, I had a conversation with Angela Garbus, the author. She writes a lot about motherhood, and she had said to me, "Oh, I felt like I was doing a book talk with her, and she was like, I felt like I became a woman the day that I stopped having sex for his pleasure, and that was when I grew up." Like, and I'd never thought about coming of age that way, but then it made me really think about the pre-coming of age. And, how easy, and I think part of why Me Too has kind of unraveled us is because like it's like there were times when we are doing things to please somebody because this feels like makes us feel hot because they desire us, but not because they make us feel hot. Like, and then suddenly you find yourself acquiescing to things like, and I think that's just, I don't know. I wanted to say that that's part of growing up, but like, I wanted to write that as part of her growing up, that she keeps going along with this, but not necessarily because it's that much fun.
There was a piece in the New York Times about Ana Mendieta specifically, and about this question of legacy and who gets to own an artist's legacy, who gets to imagine an artist's legacy. And I do wonder how you grappled with that question.
I felt like this story has hovered over so many Latina creators and so many Latina artists and so many women, but I think it hits different for Latinas because so much of her struggle was not feeling that she was accepted, that she wasn't part of the establishment. And And there was never a chance to correct that. And then she, even in death, it's like reaffirmed. And I think this idea that she was able to sort of, I could give her through fiction a second life, but I didn't want to have to dance around, let's say, saying that this man killed her, which I narrate. I narrate her own death, right? Which, like, if you're writing this and you're like, okay, now I need this estate to say okay, I need that estate to say okay. Then suddenly you're like, perhaps it happened like this. And I didn't want to have to do that. I wanted to just be like, I was pushed out a window and this is what it felt like. Legacy after a while is beyond us. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's like it's, if you're creating and the work is beautiful, it's a testament that is inspiring something else bigger than you. Somebody just sent me a piece of art inspired by this book, and it was so beautiful. And it's like I'm glad they didn't ask my permission. What am I going to do? Art direct it? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's like, well, I didn't see it that way. Like, you know, I think it's like that's their visual art, and they're taking that. And I sort of was inspired by her visual art to make this literary art. And it's a conversation. I think it's a conversation inspired by how important this life and this time and this artwork was. And I think art made in conversation with each other is such, it just enhances the power of the original art.
Before I get to your questions, one more question I want to make sure I get to, which is, Xochitl and I shared a mutual friend, Betsaida.
Oh, yeah.
Alcantara, who she passed away. She was 38. She had ovarian cancer. And I've been thinking a lot about these friends who died too young, and the way in which a person gets flattened in death, right? They become like the age they were when they died, and I could tell you her last job she had, but like you'll never know what it was like when like she laughed at one of your jokes. And so the fact that you chose to name one of your most exciting characters, Betsaida,
Yeah.
when I caught it in the book, I had to step away for a little bit because it was a lot.
I know.
And I wonder if you could talk about the responsibility that came with that choice.
I felt really moved by her death, and because she was such a powerful spirit, and I felt when I was writing this character that I was like, she's this just unconditionally supportive friend, but is not afraid of anybody. And the personality isn't Betsaida. Betsaida was more reserved, you know, in her own weird way. But like, I just couldn't think of a better tribute to Betsaida than having this character carry that name. But then there's another character in the book, Astrid, who's, I mean, everybody that knew her was a friend of mine from college who committed suicide a few years after we graduated. And, you know, like, I was like, she was such a special spirit, and we couldn't see in that time that she was troubled. And I just wanted to give space for her in that way. I say in the acknowledgments that there were a lot of ghosts running around this book. And I think everybody always thinks that it's just Ana Mendieta, but it was actually a lot of women. And I think that's sort of the beauty of fiction, is like you can knit together bits of lives and bits of people that you admire and turn them into something and give them another life, right? Carry spirits into something that then goes off to have life with other people, right? And that's what a present for my occupation, what an occupational gift. Yeah.
A gift to all of us. Okay. This question is from Natalie, who asks, what literary folks call magical realism is just what I call my family and my culture.
100%.
Calling it that feels like fetishizing
100%.
What is normal for us. How do you feel about that term and any that have been used to describe your work?
I detest that term. I detest it with all due respect, because there have been people who have said nice things about this book, and then they're like, but then they use it. I don't think of it as like a literary toolbox where it's like, well, I'm going to write a satire. I'm going to do this thing. I think it's like, what does the story require, and what are the things that make it make sense? And I think when I sit there and I'm thinking about, I'm now Anita de Monte. I'm now dead. I'm now going to describe how I died. Well, what happened? Why would I limit this to what I think happens to us walking in this room? Like, that feels like ridiculous, and it doesn't feel even true to like what I've experienced. You know, I I had this very weird thing where like there was like a period of time after my grandfather died where like quarters would just appear on the floor of my apartment, but like not like 2 quarters, like it's like 10 quarters in a corner, and you're like, what? Like it was so weird. And then this like woman like stopped me, and she was like, have you been finding quarters in your house? And I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, I'm a medium. She's like, your grandfather's trying to say hello. Death is such a magical thing. Why would I think of it more as the reality of magic, right? Like I believe that magic is real and that the realm is not what is our physical realm. I just don't believe that that's the end when we're done. And so because of that, well, then it like opened it up. There was no other way to deal with it. But it's not a literary device.
What is something you observe in our society that is a power struggle, but people think is something else?
Oh, gosh. So I think this might be controversial, but like
next question.
No, but I think this idea of when I say this in the way that like a white institution means it, where diversity is just giving somebody of a different background a chance to do the same thing. I think that we don't understand that actually we're really different and we're wired really different. And like our cultural backgrounds wire us differently to just sometimes value different things. And I think, when I wrote I wrote a noise piece about gentrification and silence in the Atlantic, and I got like hate mail from white readers. Like I should die because I pointed out that I don't mind noise when it's joyful. Like, and then I got like all of these letters from people of color that were like, I completely understand what you're talking about. And I was like there's a power struggle, I think, is that we pretend that having the same opportunities means equity, but in actuality, our cultures are still being disvalued.
Let's give a big round of applause for Xochitl.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Latina to Latina is executive produced and owned by Julia Galantigua and me, Alicia Menendez. Virginia Laura is our producer. Kojin Tashiro is our lead producer. Trent Lightburn mixed this episode. We love hearing from you. Email us at hola@latinatolatina.com. Slide into our DMs on Instagram or on Threads and TikTok @Latina to Latina. Check out our merchandise at latinatolatina.com/shop. And remember to subscribe or follow us on Radio Public, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Good Pods, wherever you're listening right now. Every time you share this podcast, every time you leave a review, you help us to grow as a community.